It will be one of the questions that will vex Barack Obama long after he has gone from 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. What did you do right? And what did you do wrong in seeking to stem the terrorist tide of killers such as ISIS? It has been apparent since the beginning there is no easy answer. But the president has managed, like so many others, to fall into traps that ruin legacies and leave people wondering if a leader truly knew what he was doing at the time. For one perspective on this, let's turn to Newsmax.com website today and seek the article entitled How Obama Aids Terrorist Recruiters. It was penned by our next guest, the professor of business at the University of Maryland and national columnist, Peter Morici. Peter, good to see you again.
Nice to be with you.
Here you go, Peter. Just go ahead and light the fire. That's all you have to do. How Obama aids terrorist recruiters. Dig into this. What's your main point here into how he does this?
Well, essentially, the people that the terrorists are recruiting are disaffected young men who are violently inclined. A lot of young men are violently inclined when they are disaffected. And in our society and throughout the West, young men have been told that they're responsible for the problems of the world in all the millennia. Women's groups, radical feminists, won the day. They're driving boys from school. In the United States, for example, boys are dropping out of high school at a record pace, and girls are getting 60% of the diplomas at the associate, bachelor's, and master's levels. It makes it very easy for a terrorist recruiter in a Muslim neighborhood where people are marginalized, where career opportunities are limited because of their ethnic circumstances and the fact that they're new arrivals and so forth, and the fact that they are boys, to appeal to them with the kind of agenda that they have, a religious-based utopian society where there's more opportunity and there are traditional roles. And I would point out that some of the girls are going with them. The reason is, in these communities, there are young women who don't have the opportunities my daughter might have or your daughter might have to go to an Ivy League school and end up on Wall Street, but instead they depend on working men. And working men are under the high heel and jackboot of this administration. Likewise, because Obama really buys into that whole thing. And the same thing goes with special privileges for minority. They don't come out of my son's stomach. You know, he's at Cornell, he's doing very, very well. They come out of the kid that's further down the ladder, the kid that might go to a state college if he's bright enough and can find the money. And instead, what he finds is he goes to state college, he gets a lot of debt, he becomes disaffected working at Starbucks. Along comes the recruiter who's available on the web. A lot of Mr. Obama's left-wing agenda is anti-male, and it's a great breeding ground for terrorists.
I think maybe one of the most salient points that you made in here is you talked about the West's guilt and culpability for all the misdeeds of humanity. What will it take to get certain people to understand that it is not all our fault? America may be called the great Satan by others, but it's not as if we consistently and every single day drive people into poverty and drive them into lives of crime.
But the president does. The president does. At a prayer breakfast talking about the terrorist threat, he said, well, you know, Christians did terrible things during the Crusades. And slavery was Jim Crow was justified by Christianity. Some of that stuff is, the balance there is questionable, but just take it at its face value. You put that message out there, then you get a young Muslim kid, and you say to him, look, you're in a European society. These people continuously do terrible things to other people. That's why bad things are happening to you. And if you want to know why, well, just listen to the words of the President of the United States. He says these people are bad. Okay? So it makes it very, very easy. And what's it going to take? It takes what Rudolph Giuliani was talking about when he said, you know, I had a question whether God loves America. He wrote an op-ed about that in the Wall Street Journal. He was kind of taken out of context. He was basically saying these offhanded remarks the president constantly makes, denigrating Western society, blaming America, provide basically aid and comfort. He didn't use those words, but he makes it easier for ISIS to justify itself. Well, that's true at the level of ISIS, but we're facing a two-level threat. There's ISIS, which justifies itself in those terms to its army in the field. And then there are the recruiters, the second war that we're fighting, the war for the hearts and minds of young Muslims that have been resettled into the West because essentially their parents were refugees in an economic sense or a political sense. This is a riot. ISIS and others are driving Muslims to France and Germany and the United States. They become disaffected here, and then they recruit their kids. This is nuts. But Barack Obama is right at ground zero and in the center of this terrible and hideous plot. Unwittingly so, he's providing the foil for these people.
The article, once again, is called How Obama Aids Terrorist Recruiters. You can read it right now at Newsmax.com. As my granny used to say, Peter, sometimes and always you should think before you speak. And that perhaps is something the president needs to think. Peter, always a pleasure. Thanks for joining us.
All the best.
All right, take care. There may finally be a voice from the black community that could make Al Sharpton maybe shaking his loafers purchased with donated funds. That's next.